don't want is to have a business that has high business risk and combine it with high financial risk. Before the crisis, we had businesses with little leverage, a lot of leverage, little debt, a lot of debt, different amounts of risk. But I think at the end of this crisis, everything, essentially the business risk for every business is high, to extremely high. And so, well, we usually, when we look at businesses, we think about, oh, let's look at the income statement, let's check out their profitability, try to forecast that. And that's sort of a really important part to look at. I think it has really changed now to just look at companies and balance sheets. Companies with strong balance sheets, meaning having lots of cash, little debt, are clearly in a much better position to survive this crisis. For companies that are not, even that have strong balance sheets, a lot of them are and probably should be out to trying to get as much cash as possible, because whenever the medical emergency ends, you still have to be there to recover, and it's hard to predict how long this takes, and I don't think it's going to get a whole lot easier to get funding going forward. So there are programs that the government set up, encouraging lending, and some of them are quite generous with low interest rates, relatively long repayment terms. Some for small businesses will even be don't have to be repaid if companies keep their employees. So I think it's important for every just in short, I would say, as always, but in particular now, cash is king in this situation. And if you can get additional cash into your business, I think that's a great idea, with one caveat. If you're a small business and you have to personally guarantee the loans, I would think really, really hard about that, because there's clearly a phenomenal amount of risk right now in the economy. And it's one thing to have your business fold, but it's another thing to also have your personal finances fold at the same time. And this is clearly a risky proposition here. Companies with weak balance sheets right now, clearly in trouble. Doesn't look so good. Probably need some sort of bailout, restructuring eventually. It's a really, really tough situation there. For all companies, I think preserving cash in this current phase, unless you're one of the few businesses that's thriving, like toilet paper manufacturers. And even that might only be temporary. You probably have to cut expenses, which might be really good for your business, but it's sort of horrible for the overall economy. And so we are in this together, but in some part, what's good for an individual business is not necessarily good for the overall economy. And I think that's why a lot of the government programs try to encourage businesses to do what's good for the economy, and we'll see. One fundamental problem is, I think, that usually when you run a business, if you're doing a good job, your business will oftentimes do well. If you're doing a poor job, it will do poorly. In this situation, most businesses have absolutely no control over their success. It's all driven by external forces, essentially the virus and the public response to it. At the beginning, I said there's a lot of uncertainty and it's nearly impossible to predict anything. But of course, that doesn't keep me from predicting things, to think about what might happen going forward. My sense is that the economic pain from the lockdowns will continue to increase for quite some time. That the economy will be in poorer shape, more and more people, individuals will run out of money. And so I think that will be a driving force over how we're going to change policy going forward, and how we manage the trade-off versus lockdowns versus opening the economy. And I think in the next couple of months or so, I think will become sort of clear how much economic pain society is willing to take save lives here. My biggest worry is that we are moving on the economy to a sort of a point of no return, where whatever we do, we're going to be in an extremely deep depression. And so instead of having a medical crisis to deal with, we'll also have an economic crisis to deal with at the same time, which I think would be quite catastrophic. So I think we have more control over the economy than we have over this virus.